When the final bell rings, there is only one place to go.
Wrestling Unwrapped.
To the max!
Hello and welcome to another Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max. Of course, reviewing WWE Hell in a Cell 2016. I'm your host, Sean Garmer, and Gary and Paul are both not here. Paul had to work and Gary had to go out of town, and we would have been starting this thing about 3 hours from now if we would have waited for him. So, yeah.
You guys would have been starting this thing about 3 hours from now.
I'm just making a point to the to the people listening. I didn't need you to butt in and make a silly joke. But anyway, you know, the guys from Wrestling Unwrapped, of course, are here. You already heard Harry, and Patrick is here as well. Patrick.
And that's it. And all I have to say is, the only thing I have to say right now is, hey, Boston, what do you say? You're stuck with that finish today.
Well, at least the Patriots won. Anyway, you know.
You know what, Garmer? Bite me.
Hey. You know, I mean, Patrick had a good day. I had a good day. I'm sorry. So.
Look.
What?
What?
No, I'm going to go ahead and let this one go because we have a very important show to get into.
Okay, so anyway, they WWE decided earlier today or last night or wherever the freaking actual time frame came where this actually happened, that after mulling it over for an entire week or whoever knows how long, they decided to finally have Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair, who she magically now is Charlotte Flair after just being called Charlotte forever. And they went on last. And so they were the main event of this show. Charlotte, after they brutally beat up each other with tables, hitting each other through the announce table, powerbomb through the announce table. It ends with a natural selection by Charlotte, and she again becomes the Raw Women's Champion for the third time, still undefeated at pay-per-views. And once again, Sasha Banks can't hold the title for very long. Just really weird.
I'm going to go ahead and start here because I actually agree with the booking decision here. And the reason I say that is there's no other suitable heel on the main roster right now, on the Raw roster, to challenge Sasha as the babyface champion right now, whereas you have Bayley perfectly set to be the next contender for Charlotte as the heel champion. So I'm perfectly okay with the fact that they had Charlotte in this match. Plus, given the landmark style of match here, Sasha getting the opportunity to become the first woman to main event a pay-per-view in NXT as well as the WWE, that gives her something to brag about. Whereas now Charlotte can brag that she was the first woman to win a Hell in a Cell match.
The problem that I see with that is while Charlotte can brag that she's the first person to main event both a TakeOver and a WWE pay-per-view, she lost both matches. Why the hell would she want to bring that up?
It speaks to the face of the company in her. To be able to put her on last, to carry a show.
You know, and I was texting Harry. This one bugged me. It really bugged me. because it's like second verse, same as the first. Sasha wins it on Raw, and then Charlotte wins it back at the pay-per-view. And if you really want to be kind of headhunting for similarities, nearly kills Sasha while doing it. It just... Let her hold the damn belt for longer than a month. Quit doing this Sasha wins on Raw, then Charlotte wins it back at the pay-per-view. This is the second time they've done it. And it's just... This would have been the perfect time to end Charlotte's winning streak. They're in the main event, in the first ever female Hell in a Cell. It's Sasha's hometown. Yes, I know historical precedent, aside from Money in the Bank 2011, has the hometown hero losing, but this would have been the perfect situation. And quite frankly, I'm actually glad that there really wasn't much put into the fact that it was Sasha's hometown. You know, I don't think it got mentioned until Sasha made her entrance. That I can honestly remember. But this one bugged me.
I think they talked about it on the pre-show.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain they talked about it on the pre-show.
Okay.
Plus, she had that shirt that was like only being sold at the event that made something about it being her town.
Bosstown.
Yeah, Bosstown.
Yeah. And I was going to say, is that the shirt or the jacket that she was wearing that you're referring to there? Because originally, when she came out into the arena, the chyron that she had obscured the shirt. But then when she got down to the ring and she turned around again, you could clearly say that I think it said "Made in Bosstown."
Right.
Yeah, but they may have also made that a shirt. WWE has a tendency to now make shirts kind of to commemorate big events and things like that.
Right, I mean, hell, they do it for Brock every city he goes to. So.
As a matter of fact, and kind of a goofy little ironic moment, that started at Money in the Bank 2011, since it got mentioned with, the Best in the World shirts. That was the first time they ever did that, and they've pretty much been doing it ever since now. Like Sean mentioned, with the Suplex Cities, so if they had made that a shirt, it's nothing new.
Well, I think the thing with the shirt I think that the thing with the shirt for Brock is that they're trying to recoup some of their investments in in-arena merchandise sales. And it's a pretty basic shirt. You just have to change the name of the city. It's not like the shirt design changes any. It's just the name of the city on the shirt that changes.
And maybe the color of the sign.
Yeah, the color of the sign does change. Because you can tell the difference between the Minnesota one and another one that they've done. It looks a bit different.
Yes. I think anyway, some have been red, some have been green, some have been blue, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, getting back to, I mean the match.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna actually bring up the exact same thing you were about to bring up. So go ahead, it's all you.
Well, the match was really, really good. I just felt like there were so many. I don't know if the finish got messed up. It seemed like they were trying to do it 2 or 3 different times, and then Charlotte just got frustrated, and they just went with the natural selection finish. But I mean, aside from that, it felt like anticlimactic because they had done so much brutal stuff to each other. But it went a little long to the point where I think the crowd was just kind of gassed. And then it's like, oh, you do that, and that's how you end it. And it was hard for the fans to kind of buy that that's the ending. I think also they were expecting Sasha to win, too. And that kind of just flabbergasted them a bit as well. And if you really think about it, all the heels won the Hell in a Cell matches because, nobody's cheering Roman Reigns. So, I mean, that's a swerve right there too. But
all right,
yeah.
Real quick. All right, the pay-per-view itself was 3 hours 15 minutes. I mentioned it right before we went on. I want to play Jeopardy with you guys real quick.
Okay.
All right? The answer is... Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. The answer is 1 hour, 7 minutes, 40 seconds.
In-ring bell-to-bell time for the 3 Hell in a Cell matches.
Sean, do you have a guess?
I'll go with
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because all 3 went over 15 minutes. I believe the women's was the shortest. But yeah, the 3 matches combined were 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 40 seconds. There's too many Hell in a Cell matches. We all know this. You know, at least they gave every match some time. I think while they had the shortest match, I think the main event did have the longest segment because of the brawl beforehand. But like you guys said, by that point, everyone was burned out. All 3 matches had chairs. All 3 matches had tables, I believe. And it's just...
I was just going to say, I think it's the problem with Hell in a Cell in the PG era is that there's only so much you can do to differentiate the matches.
And I mean, the brawl to start the main event.
They tried to make them different, though. You had the interference with Jericho that extended that match. So, like, I think that was like 30 minutes by itself if you tie all that in there. And you had the brawl with the women. And you had the stuff with Lana to start out with Rusev and Reigns, and then they kind of had, they had the kendo stick. They had a few other things that weren't used in the other matches, so they did try in a way.
I will give credit where credit is due, though, back to the women's match itself that closed out the pay-per-view tonight. So I will give credit where credit is due. Deflating finish aside, and I don't mean necessarily deflating by the fact that Charlotte won. I mean more so by the fact that the finish came off the way that it did. Deflating finish aside, it was actually a very good match, in my opinion. I think that the women went out there and more than delivered in their first main event opportunity.
Oh, no, I agree with you on that. I mean, that wasn't my issue with it. I'm just saying, I think the step that you wanted it to take, where we're talking about great, we're talking about it's on the same level as all, some of the other matches they've had, it wasn't there. Because it just didn't have, to me, it didn't have that feeling to me. Just, there was at times where I thought, okay, well, maybe it is going to get there, but then as it wore on, it felt like it was wearing on you instead of getting to that climax and going all in a nice bow to the ending. Like, I get it. They were brutally going through things. Sasha stopped work. They stopped working on the back for a little bit, but they went back to it. And the whole point was, Sasha's neck and back was hurt. Charlotte went after it. They did what did you guys think of the injury, basically doing the Foley from Hell in a, King of the Ring 98, having Sasha do the injury angle?
I won't lie. I saw Ambrose and Rollins for theirs because, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they do a stretcher spot when Ambrose and Rollins went off the side of the cell?
Yeah, but they did a thing where both of them were put on stretchers here, and that's actually kind of what I was expecting when they were both up on the cell fighting, that they were both going to go off through that table. The fact that it was only Sasha that ate the table there made me think that they were going to use that to help build sympathy towards the back injury. I called Charlotte cheap-shotting Sasha before the cage finished lowering before it happened, though, because I feel like that was another good way for them to differentiate the matches there, with Charlotte trying to get that cheap advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, and hell, I think Sean may have called it a week before I did, maybe, and I called, the women's Hell in a Cell match last month when we did Clash of Champions. But I feel like, yeah, it did wear on you, And there were probably times where they just did stuff for the sake of going long. But I thought it was a worthy main event. Sure, it was the shortest of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches, but it was the shortest of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches by a matter of, like, less than 2 minutes. Because I think the match times were, here, real quick, Gary, I think the match times were 24:35 for the U.S. title, 23:15 for the Universal title, and then 22:50 for the main event. And I thought they delivered, and like I said, with the fact that they had a huge brawl, they probably went for over half an hour. Plus the
other thing that I would point out, too, is I don't feel this match overstayed its welcome like the U.S. title one did. I found myself disinterested in the U.S. title one other than the big spots, honestly, because of the fact that pretty much the build to it has been Roman Reigns constantly handing Rusev his ass.
No, so that's the point, though. You're invested in that women's title match. Like, so you're willing to stay in it longer than... And they were also really slow during the first part of that U.S. title Hell in a Cell match, too. It took a while for that match to get going. Whereas Sasha and Charlotte, from the word go, they were going like they should have been.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem here, is that the opening... can we segue this kind of into the Rusev and Roman match?
We might as well.
I was just going to say here, and that was the thing that bothered me about the Rusev and Roman match, is the fact that it didn't get to the point that you would think it would get to start this year. Because these guys have been feuding with each other now for almost 3 months here, and you would think that with Hell in a Cell being the end-all be-all of feuds in the WWE, or at least it's kind of its reputation, even though more recently it's because, hey, it's October, it's Hell in a Cell, that they would treat that with the importance that it deserves, and they would go out there swinging. And I really didn't get that feeling from Reigns and Rusev. There were a couple really nice spots in the match, but I don't think top to bottom that it was a good Hell in a Cell match. I feel like Roman's Hell in a Cell match against Bray Wyatt 2 years ago was last year, was significantly better.
That's fair.
I mean, and I think this was kind of one of those things where, all right, you're going to hype up a triple main event. If you have a triple main event, I'm sorry, but you do not have one of your quote-unquote main events be the curtain jerker. You know, but that would also leave them being stuck with, do they put all 3 Hell in a Cell matches back to back to back? But I think having one Hell in a Cell match kick off the show might have hurt it already, and it was partially the fact that, once again, it's Roman Reigns. No one gives a damn. You know, I'm pretty sure I heard more people cheering for Rusev. Of course, I was actually stuck watching this one on my phone. Harry and Sean should know why. But it seemed like the fans were still more on the side of Rusev than on Reigns. And, by the way, why was Rusev wearing his U.S. champ belt?
There was "Let's go Rusev, Rusev sucks" chants. I mean, just so to cheer for Reigns.
I heard that for Roman.
No, there was no Roman chant at all. It was a Rusev chant.
Rusev definitely out-popped Roman on his entrance, too.
Well, it helps Rusev looks like Wolverine.
No, you know what I think it is I think that Rusev has been so constantly entertaining despite the crap that he's been given to work with over the course of the last couple of months, that people can't help but kind of feel bad for the guy, that he's stuck in this feud with Vince's new Super Cena, for lack of a better term, and that they realize that he's getting kind of the... I can't use that word. Yes, I can. He's getting kind of the shit end of the stick.
Well, and Roman's been a dick this entire feud. I mean, like, why do I need it? Why am I cheering for Roman Reigns at all in this entire feud? Go ahead.
Sorry. And oh boy, I'm going to catch flack for this one. Vince wants him to be the next Cena. The problem is, he's more becoming the modern Hulk Hogan, doing really heelish things, but still expecting cheers.
I think he's becoming the 92-93 era Hogan, where the writing was on the wall. And the problem with that is that Vince was smart enough to cut ties with Hogan then and let him go reinvent himself in WCW to allow Hogan to come back as something more beneficial towards the company later. I think Vince needs to see the writing on the wall with Roman sooner rather than later, or you jeopardize the long-term potential of a guy like Roman Reigns there. Think of the exact way that this worked out for his cousin. Imagine if Vince would have tried to stick with punky babyface Rocky Maivia. The world would have never known who The Rock was and what he was capable of.
Well, but that's the point, though. They're trying to make him The Rock right now without... He doesn't have the 1 cent of the charisma that Rock has. I'm sorry, he doesn't. So, like, they're trying...
You're not going to get an argument. You're not getting an argument from us.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm not arguing with the people that are Roman Reigns, that think that he will just have it out for Roman Reigns. And it's like, no, it's that they are trying to make him an asshole and they think people are going to like him because he's being an ass. And it's like, no, they aren't. He is that football jock guy that you don't want to cheer for if it was the last guy on earth that you had to. I mean, this is worse than Cena. It's
He's WWE's version of a pre-babyface turned EC3, just without any of the charisma.
Which is scary if you think about it.
Yeah.
EC3 has a ton of charisma.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Ethan Carter III, BKA Derek Bateman or Michael Hutter, depending on what promotion you watched him in. That dude has a crap ton of charisma, and TNA finally gave him the opportunity to show it. But the thing about it is he was that entitled wrestling bloodline, although gimmick in Carter's case. He was that guy that came in and got everything handed to him. Roman Reigns, to that extent, has been that guy that came in and got everything handed to him. And Vince is expecting somebody like that to be cheered. And most of the fans that are enjoying the hard work of guys like Rusev, as I mentioned, that got as thoroughly behind Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose as we did, realize that these are guys that busted their asses to get where they are. Whereas Vince's chosen boy out of the Shield members in this case, Roman, which was the one that was given all of the main event opportunities that the other guys had to scratch, claw, and fight their way to get. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
But getting back to this match, it's just, I almost feel like the crowd would have been better responsive to it if they had decided to, for some ungodly reason, make the triple main event an actual triple main event, just go lockdown on it, and just have all 3 of the final matches be the Hell in a Cell, and put this one in the middle. Sure, it would have been the death spot a little bit. Hang on. It would have been the death spot between, the forthcoming women's championship match and the Universal title match, but I still think... Well, not only that, Vince could have also pawned it off to, they were tired by then. It seems weird that they would have this open the show.
I disagree with you, and here's why. Because even if you put this match in the death slot, as you put it, the pre-main, you run the risk of burning people out before Sasha and Charlotte. And I think that Sasha and Charlotte got enough of a crowd reaction to justify their main event spot, and that crowd wouldn't have been nearly as into it if an act like New Day hadn't led into that women's title match. And what I mean by that is Roman Reigns, his character is so dead in the water right now, and Rusev as a general booking philosophy is dead in the water, that the crowd would have been so indifferent coming out of that match that I don't know that Sasha would have gotten the reaction that she did. I don't know that Charlotte would have gotten the reaction that she did. I don't know that crowd would have stayed as invested in that match as they did without having the lead-in to keep the crowd fired up, being that New Day Sheamus and Cesaro tag match.
The only reason I would disagree with that is because I think they would have gotten the reaction in the initial part simply because of the fact that it was Sasha's hometown. I think that actually would have helped in this case.
I don't think enough to justify doing back-to-back-to-back the main events there.
It's only an idea, that's all. But yeah, this match was And, of course, it was the longest match on the pay-per-view, which doesn't help.
Roman being the longest match.
Can I point out the stupidity of the kendo stick to the chest protector, first of all? That pissed me off.
I don't think a lot of people are thinking about that, but go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, why the hell would you use the kendo stick to his midsection? He has a chest protector. I mean, granted, it's not D'Lo Brown circa SummerSlam 98 or anything, but it's still a chest protector.
There isn't
much that touches that chest protector for D'Lo Brown, let me tell you.
He probably hurt himself more snapping the kendo stick over his knee than hurting Roman with it.
True.
Probably.
I will give them credit. I did like the finish. The spear off of the ring steps was a nice finish.
I agree.
The one thing that I don't... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, although honestly, I think a better finish would have been Rusev submitting Reigns with that chain-assisted accolade.
That's the one that bugged me, was them getting out of the accolade with the chains. That one I didn't like because of the fact that, all right, you have, I don't want to say, a deadly finisher, a super powerful finisher, and in this case now, not only are you being assisted by a chain, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to do much, but let's just, think of it from a show standpoint. You have the assistance of A, a chain, and B, you're doing it on the ring steps, so you don't have the somewhat softer canvas. Instead, you're sitting on, the steel steps. Roman should not be getting out of it, and getting out of it relatively easy. It didn't seem like he really ever put up a major fight about it. It seemed like he got out of that pretty damn quick.
Yeah, my thought on that was if the roles were reversed here and Rusev was the actual babyface going into this match, that would have been a perfect finish for Rusev. Because that would have been him finally breaking down and stooping to the level of which he was pushed to. And to an extent, you can kind of see how Roman Reigns pushed him to get to that point there. I think that would have been the perfect finish there. And it would have paid off Rusev getting revenge for everything that happened up until this point with Lana as well. But instead, it ends up being Reigns going over here, and I think that kind of is going to end up leading to Roman Reigns and possibly Kevin Owens sometime in the near future for the Universal title.
Which was mentioned on Raw Talk after the show tonight.
Oh boy.
Apparently, and I didn't see it because I didn't watch it because I was watching the ninth inning of the Cubs and Indians. Sorry, yes, I'm going to mention it. Is that apparently Roman cut a promo and said if anybody was going to take the title off of Kevin Owens, it was going to be him.
Well, that was only a logical thing. They weren't going to keep Roman out of that title picture forever,
That's all well and good, but why not actually have Roman point out how valuable the U.S. title is and that he's going to make it on the same par as the heavyweight title, similar to what Jay Lethal did in Ring of Honor. Why does Roman have to bury the U.S. title by stating that his true desire is the heavyweight title?
Because not everybody's Jay Lethal, man. We can't all
compare
it. He wants the main title. That's what he's always wanted. It's what he's gone after.
Not only is he not Jay Lethal, he's barely Sanjay Dutt.
Wow.
Hey, Sanjay Dutt deserves better than that.
I knew you were going to stand up for Sanjay. All right,
damn right.
Oh. Sorry, Sean, go ahead. I was about to move us on, but I realized this is your show, so go ahead.
Bored. Okay. Anyway.
The next match?
Well, we might as well talk about the other Hell in a Cell match since we talked about the other two.
That's where I was going to take us to.
Kevin Owens retains after Chris Jericho comes in, and he's in that cell for quite a while. And they have actually a bunch of near falls with Jericho in the cell, which is kind of cool. It finally ends with Rollins getting powerbombed through 2 chairs, and Kevin Owens is still your WWE Universal Champion. I thought that Seth Rollins looked really good in this in defeat. They made him almost overcome everything. That's what you want in your babyface that you're trying to get over like that. So for me, I thought the mission was accomplished. The crowd got really into it. The crowd was nuts for Jericho coming out there. I swear, like, it's just amazing that I don't think this list thing was ever supposed to become this big at all. And it is now, like, almost overshadowed this feud at times. But, yeah. I mean, to me, this had a better flow than the Sasha and Charlotte match. I think the Charlotte-Sasha match maybe is equal to this match on the same level. It just really good stuff from both guys, and you know what you're going to get with both guys there. They are the utmost professionals.
Wait, Sean. You're actually doubting Chris Jericho's ability to get something over? You're going on the list for that.
You just made the list.
Awesome. I just made the list.
Anywho, you want to go first here, Patrick?
Yeah, and I'm probably about to get yelled at by both of you guys. The match so good they booked it twice. Because you had, the main baby face going into this match, ends up being at a disadvantage, comes damn close to overcoming all of the obstacles, ends with, well, almost a finisher through a table, or I should say through a weapon, and that's kind of where I'm going anyway. I found a lot of similarities between both this match and Sasha and Charlotte. Granted, the matches were still different enough, but I found a lot of similarities between the two of them. It's just with Charlotte, she had the cheap shots that she would take rather than having Chris Jericho come in, but the babyface side of it was fairly similar. But at the same time, once again, it's Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. Rollins brings a little bit of experience, having done Hell in a Cell matches before already, and I think Kevin Owens would have gone into this as enough of a wild card that you really didn't know what you could expect. I thought they absolutely delivered. I did think Jericho, as great as he is, I did think Jericho was in the match too long. He was probably in there for almost the entire second half of the match. And I feel like maybe a little too long, or just have him not play into the finish. And then, to me, the finish seemed a little flat just because it was like beat down, powerbomb through the chairs, it's over. And then Jericho with the code breaker after I found really weird. It's pretty clear that, something's going to happen there. But great match, flat finish.
Seems to be kind of a theme of most of the major matches on the show here. And there's another match specifically that I'm referring to that I'm sure we'll get to here shortly. But two things to touch on in regards to this match. One, Jericho was in this match for way too damn long. And I say this is arguably, and not even arguably, the biggest Jericho mark on this panel. Jericho took more spots than probably both of the guys in the match did, and that's kind of telling. Because for the better part of the second half of that match, Jericho was Seth Rollins' personal bitch. Most of the offense that Seth got in the second half of that match was against Jericho, not against Owens. As far as the finish, I think I got what they were going for there, especially with the chair attack. They were going for kind of like an Austin Rock vibe, where Austin just beat the hell out of Rock with a chair at the finish. And then given the fact that with the way the chairs were set up, you couldn't really do the pop-up powerbomb through them, a standard powerbomb through 2 steel folding chairs should be a finish in the WWE in this day and age.
It was.
Well, no, I'm saying that it should be, though. There's no reason. There's no viable reason to me that should be getting kicked out of in this day and age when it comes to the usage of steel chairs in the WWE anymore. In regards to what you said about Jericho and the Codebreaker after the match, I think that was Jericho getting a little bit of payback for Rollins for all the pedigrees that Jericho took in the course of the build towards this Hell in a Cell match.
Fair enough. Real quick, I won't lie. For probably the first second and a half of the 3 count, I seriously thought Rollins actually was going to kick out of it, just because it felt like such a flat time. Because there probably very little reaction to the actual 3 count. But so I was sitting here thinking, I was like, is Rollins really going to kick out of this? And then he didn't. I was like, oh, okay. You know, that's how they're going to go. I was like, okay, good. You know, that's how it should be. It just sucked that the crowd was kind of out of it by that point. But I think the match itself took it out of them because of the fact that Jericho was in too damn long with no real retribution. You know, there was no miscommunication like there was in the tag title match with, you know, Sheamus hitting the boot on Cesaro. It felt like they were building to something like that, and it just never happened. The match felt a little weird in the second half. This was like a tale of 2 halves, this match in particular.
That's fair. But that's what it was. That's what they wanted it to be, was you had the contest between the 2 guys, and then you had Jericho come in and it turned into something else, where Jericho's there helping his friend.
And that's kind of been the thing when it comes to, like, cage matches and Hell in a Cell matches there. When they make a match that they insist will keep interference out, 95% of the time it means that somebody's going to interfere. I will give them credit for the innovative spot that it led to the interference, though. The fire extinguisher to the referee was a pretty cool spot, I thought.
Yeah, it was different.
I like them using the fire. How long has it been since they used the fire extinguisher in a match? I mean,
on Chris Jericho versus CM Punk. That's the last I can think of.
That's a while. So credit to them for bringing up something different.
Maybe Jericho Ambrose at some point, but
do we have to bring up Mitch again?
You leave Mitch out of this, you terrible person.
Mitch the Plant was awesome. Too bad Paul wasn't.
Wrestling's amazing.
He'd be marking out about the Plant.
If Mitch showed up on Raw tomorrow, I would lose my shenanigans. I'm just saying.
It's okay. You can.
Wrestling's so weird sometimes.
Why not? I mean, they got the Plant over more than the actual match. I mean.
Yeah, God, that was true. Anyway.
That's unfortunately legit. All right.
So we move on to the match that I was surprised that went in that, I guess, quote-unquote dead spot, but it actually turned out to be just as equally good as the one on Raw. And I thought they did this as well as they possibly could with the, Cesaro looks like he has Xavier pretty much about to tap out, but then they call a DQ because Kofi does a Trouble in Paradise. So Sheamus, Cesaro thinks that he won, but they lost. And the match was good. I like the fact that both of them, they had their problems, but they still wanted to win the match and win the titles. And that sold it for me. I was totally on board with this.
I don't know that they wanted to win the titles. I think this was a case where they just wanted to win a title. And if it had to be the tag team titles, so be it. You know what I mean?
I think that they're going to get along for the betterment of their careers. And honestly, I kind of figured that something was up when Xavier was in the match instead of Kofi tonight. Because usually when it comes to the New Day's big pay-per-view matches, it's Big E and Kofi. And I know that they used Kofi on Raw, but they played that off on Raw with Michael Cole's comment, and I'm going to give credit to Michael Cole here, which isn't something I do often because, both of you guys know my opinion on Michael Cole as a commentator by and large. But Cole said that the reason that Kofi was in the match on Raw is because they were taking Cesaro and Sheamus as enough of a threat to send out the tag team that usually defends the titles. So rather or not they play it off as the fact that Xavier was thrown out there as a curveball due to what happened on Raw when Sheamus and Cesaro won, or the fact that the intent all along was for Kofi to somehow factor into the finish, much the same way as he did when it came to the feud between the New Day and the Club. I don't think we're anywhere near done with this feud, even if it does have to be paused for a while in order to go into Survivor Series in that 5 tag teams versus 5 tag teams match.
Real quick, how do you think I felt? We always complain about commentary. Not only did I have to deal with Michael Cole, I also had to deal with Joe Buck tonight. Ugh.
You made the decision to deal with Joe Buck. You have no one to blame but yourself. I listened to the game on the radio and listened to Dan Schulman.
I'd much rather have that. Anyway, this match, it's becoming a common theme, especially lately. Put Cesaro and Sheamus, in a match, and they're gonna tear the house down. And it seems like it's becoming more and more common of a thing with Sheamus. Cesaro had already had a bunch of great matches. The Fatal 4-Way at Payback, and even the Fatal 4-Way the night after WrestleMania. But this was, another very good match. And yeah, it does kind of suck that you essentially have to put this one on hold.
Well, hold on, Patrick. We have a caller. You have just called Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max, reviewing Hell in a Cell 2016. What is your name? Where are you from?
Well, my name is DJ Baby Boy, or you guys can call me Antonio. Doesn't matter. And I'm from New York, upstate New York. And, I definitely like what I'm hearing so far. So I will definitely follow this show, because I'm on Spreaker too. So hopefully, a follow for a follow, if you will. But, I just like to chime in as well on the pay-per-view. I saw the pay-per-view too. And there were some matches on there that I wasn't really too impressed with. And there was others I felt could have been a little bit better. But, nonetheless, it was okay for what it was.
Is there a match that you did really like?
If I was to say any match that I could say I particularly liked, I will say Rusev versus Roman Reigns. I will be completely honest with you. That was, if anything, that was probably the best. I would go as far to say that was the match of the night, to be honest. Because nothing was forced into that match. I felt that match was actually, it felt normal. It actually felt good to see that match go, flow so smoothly. I kind of felt like the other 2 Hell in a Cell matches was a bit forced. I kind of felt like it was a bit predictable, if you will. But I think Roman Reigns versus Rusev, definitely unpredictable on all ends, really. Definitely. Definitely had. I will say that match definitely had me on the edge of my seat, honestly. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you here. The issue that I had with the build going into this match is that it was predominantly one-sided towards Roman Reigns, and in my opinion, most of the match leaned towards Roman Reigns as well. At no point did I think Rusev was going to win, with the minor exception of the chain-assisted accolade. I definitely see where you're coming from with that, but I think it would have made for a better to me, I feel that if Rusev would have won, I think either way we still would have saw a classic either way. I still think this match was a classic either way, depending on how you look at it, on what side of the fence you're looking at it. But the reason I say, to me, that was the match of the night, just only because when you look at Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens, the Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins match, I already knew that Chris Jericho was going to have something to do with this match one way or another, but to me, I wasn't necessarily surprised in that matchup because I knew that this was, the outcome of that was going to happen. My only issue, if we're talking about that particular match or just that storyline, if you will, is the fact that they given Seth Rollins too much to me. I kind of felt like, okay, give Seth Rollins something because of the fact Finn Balor got hurt after SummerSlam. Cool, fine. Let's give him something, so maybe he can redeem himself. But I kind of felt like they kind of given Seth Rollins a bit too much. I think at this point, after tonight, I think Seth just needs to move on now at this point. Just move on, go to something else, and let Kevin Owens do his own thing until Finn Balor comes back and they do their own thing. But I just kind of felt that, in a way, that match was too predictable. I saw Chris Jericho coming a mile away, and in a way, I'm kind of glad Seth Rollins lost, honestly, not because of whatever. I just think because Seth Rollins, I think now he needs to just focus on something else instead of always going after the world title so much. When it comes to Sasha versus Charlotte, I was a little bit disappointed. I was disappointed because I kind of felt like the build up to that point, I just felt it just went totally to crap. It really did. Sasha, I get she trying to do the whole Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 thing. I get it. But I think that outcome I kind of saw coming too because of the fact that she was already hurt going into the match. So, I mean, sure, granted, she may think she was 100%, but let's keep it real. She was maybe 80 at best. Okay, and that's me being generous. Like, she was 80 at best. And she knew the severity of this match. And at this point, I kind of hate to say this, but right now, Charlotte is a beast right now as far as the women's division is concerned. I mean, now she's, 13 or 14-0 now with pay-per-views? And who else can you say has done that except for Nia Jax? But, I mean, Nia Jax is undefeated on TV shows. We're talking about pay-per-views where matches that actually matter the most. And at this point, I mean, as much as I wanted to see an awesome main event because how hyped it was, I felt that it was overhyped and it really didn't perform to the best of its abilities. And the fact that, like I said, Sasha came in at 80% at best, it definitely wasn't what I was hoping for in that one. So that is why I say, to me, the match of the night has to be Roman versus Rusev. Now, when you talk about the tag team, what you guys were talking about before I called in, the tag team, I was hoping for Cesaro and Sheamus win that. I really hoping for them to win that, honestly. Because you have two different guys. You got one who's the fan favorite. Then you have the other one, not so light, but he's the muscle. He's more of the brolic, muscle, brawler type, which is good. And I think if they would have won, I don't want to say it will be the lesser of two evils, but it definitely would have worked out in Sheamus' favor because one way or the other, Sheamus would have obviously run around and turned face and stuff. So I think Cesaro would have brought the best out of Sheamus, but for some reason I don't see why the WWE is obsessed with the New Day. I don't get why they're obsessed with the New Day, but I got respect for them, especially for Kofi, because I am a Patriots fan myself, and he comes in with the Gronk signed shoes. So I was a little bit excited to see that myself, but I kind of feel that for the New Day, for all of, like, even if it's one person excluded from the match, that's still a recipe for the idea that they're going to always win based on the fact that they have the numbers advantage. Now, if it was just two of them, guarantee you that the outcome would have been totally different. Now, if Kofi would have been banned at ringside, the outcome would have been differently. I guarantee you that.
The thing is, they care about the New Day because the New Day sells merch. And the New Day is an overact that's done a lot for them. And we were there. I mean, Patrick and I were there for WrestleMania, and every other shirt was New Day. People had the cereal
That's an
box.
understatement.
I mean, it was either Shinsuke Nakamura or it was New Day. So it's just, that's the thing. Until they prove that they're not a commodity, they're going to keep pushing them. And they wanted to break the record right now, and that's the whole deal. And they could have just had them straight up lose, and they didn't. So, yes, this is just building up to another rematch so that New Day they don't have to start a whole new feud with the New Day or whatever so they can break the record. But they did this in a creative way. They could have done it in the normal, we don't care about this, our own Sheamus, let's just have them lose here, and they didn't,
No, and I'm sorry, real quick here. I want to touch on something that Sean mentioned because I actually wanted to touch on it when we were addressing this match earlier. There is the fact of the matter is what Sean said about New Day and Demolition's record is correct here. They wouldn't be constantly bringing up Demolition's tag team record if they didn't have intentions of New Day breaking it. So in my opinion, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that New Day were leaving Hell in a Cell with the tag team titles because they wouldn't have to defend them at Survivor Series. Therefore, they would hold them long enough, most likely going into the Roadblock pay-per-view in December. That, by the way, I may be going to, so I might be out for that post-show. I'll keep you guys updated. But for that Roadblock pay-per-view in December, for them to be the big time where New Day ends up dropping the titles to possibly set up a WrestleMania chase for them.
And Roadblock would be after the record-breaking match because I think the actual record day is on a Tuesday, so I think it's the first Tuesday in December. So, yeah, they could very easily just break the record and then drop them at the nearest convenience, which would be Roadblock.
I mean, everybody here definitely have some very, very, very valid points here. Now, this is my question here. My question is the club here. What are you going to do with the club, honestly? I think the club has definitely also been overhyped since they came in. I definitely like I like them, quite frankly, but for them to go up against Cass and Enzo, let's be real, they could have done so much better with that. I kind of feel that with Cass and Enzo, I could see, don't get me wrong, I can listen to Enzo talk all day. He is a phenomenal talker. If anything, probably one of the best talkers in the WWE right now. I wouldn't say of all time because, of all time, I have to give it to like Dusty Rhodes and The Rock and all that. But if we're talking about today, I'm giving it to Enzo all the way. The dude can't fight for nothing, but he could definitely back it up with his words. But the club wise, I don't know what to really say about the club. Really, I don't know what to say about the Bullet Club.
The club, basically, it seems like at some points I'm wondering if this is one of those times where they just took somebody from New Japan just to take them, and that Vince just sees them as, all right, well, the comedy didn't work, which is usually my angle, so now they're just going to be dudes. And, I was surprised that they got a win. I was told, I figured they were never going to win again, the way that they had been jobbing them out, especially in the singles matches where they just kept losing and losing and losing. But, I don't know that you can. Other than going, I just don't want him to go to SmackDown because I don't want him to deal with AJ again. He's doing fine by himself. I'd rather.
No, I agree.
I'd rather if you're gonna do something with him. I just sometimes wonder if perhaps there was gonna be something with Finn and the club, and because Finn got hurt, they became directionless, and then Vince just didn't know what to do with them anymore. So they just stuck them into any kind of tag feud they could, and here's where they are.
Right. I agree, and that's a good way of putting it. My biggest question is this for everybody involved, and I don't want to feel like I'm taking over I don't want to feel like I'm taking over somebody else's show, because I know I may feel that way sometimes, but if I feel like I'm taking over, let me know. But how do everybody feel how do people feel about Hell in a Cell as an entity? Because to me, I kind of felt that Hell in a Cell kind of lost its edge since Benoit was still around. Hell in a Cell hasn't been Hell in a Cell since then. And I kind of felt that now I kind of looked at it as more like, okay, cool, Hell in a Cell, awesome. Like, I remember there was a time where you say Hell in a Cell, and people would be like, oh, snap, this is the match. Like, this might kill me at the end of the day. This might legitimately ruin my career. But now I look at it as just another modified steel cage match to me.
What do you think, guys?
I mean,
I think.
Go ahead, Harry.
Go ahead, Tucker. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Fine. I think the days of the gimmick pay-per-view in the WWE need to be over. I think now that you're doing the brand split, you need to take these gimmick pay-per-views away and build towards these matches to actually give them some kind of relevance again, rather than just saying, like I said earlier, oh, it's October, so that means it's time for Hell in a Cell. Oh, it's December, it's time for Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. Oh, it's July, it's time for Money in the Bank. I mean, don't get me wrong, Money in the Bank can stay its own pay-per-view because the concept is established enough that it can stay as such that it allows you to create main eventers. But for like Hell in a Cell, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, and to a lesser extent the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view there, they've overstayed their welcome. You don't need them to be there just because it's freaking October or it's freaking December, or in the Elimination Chamber's case it was February. No, those are matches that you build up as special attractions and you build to and you give them meaning and you give them reasoning to be happening, rather than, like I said, oh, it's December, so that means there's going to be a Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match. Screw that.
Right. No. I agree, because it's like this. I'm gonna tell you all, gentlemen. I'm gonna tell you something, gentlemen. My favorite match of all time. Okay. My favorite match is 2006 Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell. Why? Because hold on. Let me wrap. It's because of the fact that just like what he said. It was one of those matches that it had been built up. And it wasn't just okay, well, it's October, this and that. No, it was actually, the pay-per-view itself was perfect. Bad Blood. Wow, okay. Epic, for one. And then how do you end such a good pay-per-view? A Hell in a Cell match to end it all. Plus to end their little rivalry between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So to me, that's what I feel WWE has been missing all these years. They're missing the fact that these matches used to be a scary match to be in. Now you're giving them their own pay-per-views, and for what? If for me to see that, I feel like you're making a mockery out of the match that it's supposed to be to begin with. I mean, I agree with the Money in the Bank thing. I think the Money in the Bank thing, that's good. That should have been a pay-per-view way before the match was even created. But the fact that it does, and that it's been having its own pay-per-view for the longest and it's still going on strong, I definitely agree with that statement. And I think that's the only match pay-per-view that needs to stay. That's fine. But TLC, I agree with. I think that's stupid because it's in December.
Same thing with Hell in a Cell because it's October, Halloween month, and so I don't got no.
I can't believe, although because for the longest time the Bad Blood 04 Hell in a Cell was also mine, but the problem becomes that at almost 45 minutes you're talking about a match that really overstayed its welcome. In terms of being way too long. But, yeah, we're at the point now that the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view does need to go. 17 now, after tonight, 17 out of the 36 matches that have happened in Hell in a Cell's history have occurred at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, over its now, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, 8-year history. And it's just, it is too often. You don't need to do the pay-per-view itself. B, you don't need to do 3 Hell in a Cell matches.
And to your point there, Patrick, you just mentioned 17 of the 36. So just a little under 50% of them have been at the pay-per-view itself. Realistically speaking, you can look through that list there and say that maybe 5 of them actually deserve to be under the setting of Hell in a Cell.
I definitely agree, but if we're talking about, let's say, this particular pay-per-view this year, I definitely felt that the women's title and the U.S. title didn't have no business in Hell in a Cell. Now, I can understand if the U.S. title and the women's title was in a different kind of match, then that's different. I kind of felt for those 2 matches to be in a Hell in a Cell, I felt that was definitely overkill. I felt that it was, well, let's be honest, the women's title Hell in a Cell match was way overhyped than it really should have been. But at the same time...
No, was it?
Hold on, the women's title match was the only one that had any kind of storyline that was really worth it being in the Hell in a Cell. They've had a story since NXT.
Yes, granted, but to me, and it's not because I don't think that they were ready for it. Okay, like I'm not saying that they weren't ready for it. I just feel that, to me, if you overhype a match, for example, Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton, SummerSlam, that was overhyped to me. Oh, is that match? Well, this match has been 12 years or 15 years, whatever. It's been this long years in the making and this and that and the third. What happened? It pretty much ended up being a no contest to the point because of the fact that Brock Lesnar busted Randy Orton open. So because of that nature, to me, I feel that if you're going to hype a match, fine. But don't do it to the point where now, because this is what WWE did. What they did was this. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. First time ever, women's Hell in a Cell. Here's what happens. In a person's mind who watches wrestling in general, the first thing they're going to think is, okay, they about to do all kinds of off-the-wall stuff here. No. What happened? Sasha Banks turned into another version of Daniel Bryan, got herself on the stretcher, shaking herself, oh, no, I got to do this, didn't even win. You did all that just to lose. Now, I could see if you did all that and you won, then I would be having a different
Foley do the same thing and lose?
Who?
They're recreating the Mick Foley spot from Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring 1998. The King of the Ring 1998 Hell in a Cell. Foley didn't win either.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with whether or not she won the match. It was more the fighting spirit of the Sasha Banks character to be able to get back into the match after that fall off of the power bomb through the announce table. Let's not forget, we don't usually see women go through tables in the WWE. By women's standards in the WWE, that was a very big bump Sasha took off of the cell.
No,
for a relatively small wrestler.
No, and do not get me wrong, gentlemen. I'm not listen. I will give credit when credit is due. Sasha and Charlotte, they were balling out today in that match. I'll give them that. And I'm not taking nothing away from them. What I'm saying is that the way that match was and how, I can't say how it ended, but I could say the beginning of it, it shouldn't have went down the way it began. Rather, you're trying to recreate something or not. How I look at it, it should have went straight up, let the bell ring, let the ladies duke it out, and whoever wins, wins. That's where I felt it was like, okay, really? Seriously, this is what you want to do? Like, you doing this now? Like that was my whole frustration about it. Like I said, I'm not taking nothing away from Sasha. She literally put her whole life on the line tonight. And I got nothing but respect for her after all that. I just didn't like how it really began, really. That's the only frustration I got. I just didn't like how it began.
All right, fair enough. Well, man, we got to keep going with the show. So thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope to call again soon.
All right, man. Well,
all right, thank you.
All right. Well, that went into a bunch of different topics we did not plan to get into on this show, but that's what happens sometimes when people call in. All right, and then people wonder why we don't take call-ins during the regular shows anymore.
Real quick,
anyway.
Back to the tag title match here in order to get this show back on track.
Right.
The one thing I want to do before we move on from the tag title match is I want to give credit to Xavier Woods. I don't think people give this guy nearly enough credit for what he's capable of in the ring. Yeah, he's kind of known as the mouthpiece. He's known as the main mouthpiece of the New Day. He does most of the talking for the New Day. But in my opinion, he more than held his own in the ring tonight, and I don't think that that's something that he gets nearly enough credit for.
And then one extra thing that we can kind of swing this into not just the tag title match, but the other tag match that happened. I think due to the fact that the club won tonight, I have a hunch not only are they going to finally start picking up wins again, I think they're the next tag team champions. But it won't happen until Roadblock. Because I have a hunch they may go in and be among the sole survivors for the 5-on-5 tag team match at Survivor Series, and that's going to boost them back up to become number one contenders. And I really think New Day or somebody else is going to chase them into WrestleMania.
I question how long Anderson and Gallows' deal is for as well, because honestly, if their deal is only
3 years. It's 3 years.
Oh, well, in that case, then they're definitely around for the long haul, so what I was about to say becomes irrelevant. Never mind.
Yeah, I thought I had heard it was a 2-year deal.
I think they all signed the same kind of deal, 3 years. Nakamura signed a 3-year deal. I think they all signed the same deal.
All right, you guys want to move? You guys want to move this the conversation about Enzo and Cass in the club?
I don't really know that there's a whole lot to say about this other than I was surprised Anderson and Gallows got the win here. The match really wasn't a whole lot of anything.
That I agree with, but I wasn't surprised that Anderson and Gallows got the win here because Anderson had been made to look kind of like a joke in the singles matches leading up to this year. So in order to keep them as anything resembling a credible threat, you kind of had to give them the win in this match. Otherwise,
hold on, Harry. Before this, they'd lose all the time on TV, and they'd still lose at the pay-per-view. So what makes this different?
They're going to get that reputation as being guys that can't get the job done under any circumstances. If you want to win over these guys to mean something, then occasionally they have to beat teams in order to remain relevant.
Oh, I agree with you. But they could have been doing this a while ago.
I thought the Wyatt family went to SmackDown. That's what it's become.
Right?
Whenever Gallows and Anderson pick up a win, by the way, real quick, whoever had the hashtag Hot Asian Wife sign in the crowd, 5 stars for me. Absolutely amazing. Spectacular job. Anyway.
Yes, I found myself pointing that out and laughing as well.
Yeah, I got a couple laughs out of that one. Enzo's promo before the match, as somebody who Toy Story is their favorite Disney movie ever, 5 stars. The fact that Gallows and Anderson got the win isn't what surprised me, because like you said, eventually they have to throw them a win. And I really do think now starts more of a build up to Roadblock. Even through Survivor Series, I still think they'll be the next tag team champions. So you kind of go the old road of you have someone new coming in, you humble them down a little bit, break them down a little bit, and then you build them back up for a long run. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I was surprised at how clean the win was, because it was a relatively clean win. Right dead center of the ring. But I personally do really, really think this is the start of something heading into December.
I hope you're right, Patrick.
Sean, did you watch the pre-show?
No, I didn't watch the pre-show because my internet was out until exactly 8 o'clock. It went out at 6:30 and didn't come back on until 8 o'clock.
Patrick, did you watch the pre-show?
I was having some trouble connecting on my phone, so I kind of half saw the match. I didn't see the second half.
I just want to give credit to the 6 men involved in the Cruiserweight tag match on the pre-show there. I thought they did a really good job of getting the crowd hyped up for the show. In my opinion, you have 2 guys who I think will be the future of the Cruiserweight division in that match, and one of them factored into the finish, and the other one did not. And by that, I mean I want to give credit to Cedric Alexander, who I think will play a big part in the Cruiserweight division going forward, and a guy who I've read that Vince himself is really high on in Anthony Nese. Did a really good job with his role in this match as well. So I just wanted to give both of them credit for their performance in this match, and to all 6 men in general for turning in a really good performance in the pre-show match and getting that crowd hyped up for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
I mean, as you guys know, and I mentioned for the audience before, I frequent AEW shows here on the south side of Chicago in Meriden Park, and so I've seen Drew Gulak and Cedric Alexander wrestle quite a few times, and I've been one of the main ones to say, I don't think Cedric Alexander has the physical ability to have a bad match, because every match I've seen from him has been good to great. The little bit that I saw from him tonight was good, and another kind of bold prediction I'll make, I think he's going to be the next Cruiserweight champion. I don't think TJ Perkins is going to win it back.
I agree with you.
I think
it's going to be.
I think they're going to be enough.
It's either going to be Cedric. It's either going to be Cedric Alexander or Richie Swann.
Yeah.
And it could be either of them. And I think between that match and the actual Cruiserweight title match, I feel bad for TJP and Brian Kendrick, because to kind of skew towards the Cruiserweight title match, it seemed like at that point the crowd couldn't give a damn.
Yeah, I think that was the problem, is the placement of the Cruiserweight title match. I actually thought Kendrick and TJP had a really good match tonight, but given the fact that they were the first match after that Owens and Rollins Hell in a Cell match, that crowd could not have given a damn less.
That's where you should have put like an Enzo and Cass against Gallows and Anderson or whatever.
Absolutely.
Like, or Bailey and Dana, like matches that, like, honestly, nobody gives a shit. Just
the thing about it, just to your point there about the Bailey and Dana match going there, Bailey gets enough of a reaction that she would have kept that crowd into the show there. Whereas off of Reigns and Rusev, they really don't care. I think a lot of the crowd was indifferent towards both of those men there. That I think that their reactions towards Kendrick and TJP having the kind of matches they had would have been significantly better than having that Bailey and Dana match sitting in the 2-hole in this pay-per-view.
Yeah, they should have had them come after. They should have had them go early, because that's where you're going to get the best crowd reaction for them. The later you get into it, they're going to be more gassed. They're not going to care as much. I mean, you went through the effort of having a promo for them on the show, and then you're going to crap them out like that during the show? Like, that just makes no sense to me. Now, how do you guys feel about the title change? Because I've seen a lot of people really do not like this title change. They don't like Kendrick for the division. I've seen a few people say that. I mean, it was surprising to me just because I thought, okay, well, TJP is going to keep this, and this is a guy they're using to establish a division or whatever. And in reality, they've really just made TJP look stupid through a lot of this.
Yeah, that was the problem that I had, was the finish made TJP look kind of like an idiot. And, like, the entire time you're sitting there thinking that this is Kendrick Old Dog New Tricks. This is something that we've seen for years from heels. And if TJP is as learned, I know that's not a word, if he's as experienced when it comes to professional wrestling as he is, he should be able to see something like this coming from a mile away.
He should know that, because if Kendrick is going as far twice to ask him to throw the match, you don't think he's willing to do something like that to win? I mean, I know we're talking about wrestling here, but it's just, there's times in wrestling, and this is one of them, where it's like, even this is just too much.
Yeah, it's. I think if you don't do the parts where Kendrick is asking TJP to throw the match, I think this would be an acceptable outcome, where it is the old dog, new tricks kind of thing, or at least new tricks for the old dog. But with the fact that you have already had Kendrick asking Perkins to throw the match, and he did it earlier in the night, with that promo beforehand, now you're just making Perkins look like an idiot. And, your first major feud and you lose? That should not happen when you're trying to establish a division and you're trying to do it with, your first champion. And I know he's not the first Cruiserweight champion, sue me. I'm going to call him the first Cruiserweight champion in this case, in the modern era, we'll say.
Right.
But when you're trying to reestablish the Cruiserweights in the WWE and you're doing it like this, it did leave a bad taste in my mouth. And I agree. I don't like Brian Kendrick. I think, when you think Cruiserweights, you think a bit of a flashier style, you think a bit more high-flying, you think more along the lines of Rich Swann and T.J. Perkins and Cedric Alexander, but you think of them more than you think of the style that Brian Kendrick is bringing. Now, if they had, instead of Cruiserweights, light heavyweights, I think that changes it. And I think Brian Kendrick would fit into that kind of category. But when you're going to call him the Cruiserweights and you have Kendrick doing the style that he's doing, it doesn't mesh well.
I'm inclined to disagree in regards to Kendrick not being worthy of the Cruiserweight title, because that I don't buy. I think Kendrick has been very entertaining in his renaissance back into the WWE, even if I haven't necessarily agreed with the way that they've went with the Kendrick character over the course of the last 6 days. That being said, I think that this was the one way that you could have booked this match to end that made both guys look bad, because you make Kendrick look cheap and you make Perkins look stupid.
Yes, exactly. Is there a match that we have not talked about yet?
Bayley and Dana, and I only mentioned that because it becomes relevant due to the fact that Charlotte won the belt back. And in my opinion, this right here finally sets us up for Bayley and Charlotte, possibly.
Well, they got to have one more rematch unless Sasha's going to go away again.
She's probably going to go away again.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that she's not coming out of that match tonight unscathed.
All right, fair. I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm ready for the Charlotte to have another feud. I mean, they were already kind of going that way before Sasha came back as it was, so they're kind of restarting
I
that
almost-
again.
I
Yeah, and
almost
they
felt
kind-
originally that they were. Sorry, real quick. I almost felt originally that they were going to have Dana turn face.
Yeah, they were.
I
That whole thing was weird because it felt like, am I supposed to cheer for Dana? And then all of a sudden they just dropped it. It was like, okay.
Well, another thing that we have to factor in, too, is the probably returning, I would imagine, as early as tomorrow night, Emelina.
Right.
You mean the debuting Emelina?
Oh, they made it specifically known it's a transformation. Don't give me that crap. Anyway.
So what's different
That's the
about
thing.
her?
Well, now she's a model who's wrestling as opposed to a wrestler who's a model. Or vice versa, or whatever.
Yeah,
Patrick
instead
had
of being a model who
about-
wrestles, she's a wrestler who models now.
Yeah.
Yes, in a switch of the way things used to be back in back in the mid 2000s, where they would hire models who they would hope would learn how to wrestle. Anyways, we had a whole thing about that on an episode of Wrestling Unwrapped recently too. So, but no, the reason I bring up the Bayley thing here is because I think we're going to go to Bayley and Charlotte, but at the same time, with the Survivor Series looming and the 5-on-5 match coming up here, obviously the earliest that it's going to happen is Roadblock, and I don't think that this is a match that you blow on a B pay-per-view like Roadblock.
Okay, but at the same time, if you're going to do... no, they're not going to put it on Roadblock. Or they're going to play the same tune they've played twice before already and have Bayley beat Charlotte on Raw, because that's the only way that they'd be able to get out of doing this, and have Charlotte win it back in Roadblock and become a 4-time champion.
Oh God, please.
They're booking themselves into a corner with this whole winning streak and Charlotte losing
hold
on
on.
Raw but winning on the pay-per-view. They're booking themselves into a corner that they're not going to be able to get out of. She has to lose on a pay-per-view eventually.
Isn't there a case to be made that perhaps WWE is trying to establish the women's title, and so they do have them going back and forth because Sasha and Charlotte are equals? So Sasha beats Charlotte, then Charlotte beats Sasha. You know, you don't have, oh, well, Charlotte just keeps dominating Sasha or whatever. Sasha keeps dominating Charlotte because they're equally just as good as each other.
Well, if you believe the rumors, if they kind of wanted to sell the high-risk nature of the cruiserweight division by having the title constantly switching hands. So if that's the case, then you're going to end up doing the same thing with two different titles, and you run the risk of jeopardizing the importance of your titles by constantly having them bounced around from one person to another to another. See, I love the old-school mentality that a belt gets more prestige when a champion successfully defends it, especially if it's in a good match. Because I like to see competitive matches here, but I'm not a fan of a ton of title changes either.
I would agree with you, but they have a lot of champions that, I mean, the New Day have held the title for a long time. They had Seth Rollins hold the title for a long time. I mean, Kevin Owens is probably going to have a long reign. Don't know if AJ's probably going to have a long reign until Cena. So,
if I'm not mistaken, with the exception of the New Day, isn't AJ AJ the longest reigning champion in or is that would that be oh crap, where was I going with this? Owens. Did Owens win the title before AJ won his? Because wasn't his like a week and a day at SummerSlam, and then AJ's was at Backlash,
No.
I think.
So, yeah, I think Owens would have actually had been the Monday before Backlash.
right.
So, with the exception of the New Day, who's back, just real quick here, though, with the exception of New Day that's held the title for 427, 26, whatever it is, for as many days as they have there, that means Kevin Owens is the second longest reigning champion in the WWE right now, and he's had the Universal title for like 2.5 months.
Yeah, but how long did The Miz have the IC title before that? How long? I mean, I'm just making a point that they have had long champions for a lot of these titles. Just, it's okay to have a title that does switch hands at times, or, it doesn't have to be every month, but just saying.
Okay, but in this case, we're already at 3 times in 1 month for the women's title because it changed hands at Clash of Champions. Then what? 3 weeks ago, Sasha wins it back from Charlotte, and then Charlotte wins it back tonight. If you,
but wasn't the thing with Charlotte? Wasn't the thing with Sasha because she was hurt and they didn't know how long she was going to be out?
I would also point out that the title did not change hands at Clash of Champions. It changed hands at SummerSlam originally.
Oh, okay. So that's 3 times in 2 months.
Right.
And
how long was Sasha's reign going into SummerSlam? 3 weeks?
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just...
Dude, did you go into a tunnel or something?
Huh?
Did you go into a tunnel or something? I can barely hear you now.
That should go away in a second when the plane leaves.
Planes. Okay.
Sorry. Anyway, but I'm closer with Harry there, where I prefer longer championships because whenever that championship finally changes hands, it's going to mean something after you have a person who's gone through everybody. New Day, it probably won't matter as much because the tag team division in the WWE is as good as it is.
Okay, but let's be honest here.
But,
how many heels are there for Sasha to go beat right now?
The only one that I could think of that would make any sense other than Charlotte in a rematch is Nia Jax.
Nia.
And I don't think Nia's ready.
That's the point, though.
No, I agree with you in giving the belt back to Charlotte because of the whole Bayley thing that's ready for her. But at the same time, with Survivor Series coming up, unless this is a case of Sasha being actually injured again and then having to get the title off of her, with Survivor Series, you really didn't need to set up a women's title match for Survivor Series.
Well, I think they wanted to go ahead and have those seeds planted so when they do have Roadblock, or if they don't do it at Roadblock, if they do some kind of other match to string it along to Royal Rumble, and say you have a women's... I'm going to assume you're going to have 2 women's title matches at Royal Rumble because you're not going to have that many matches unless they plan on...
Do you want to know what I almost feel could happen at Rumble? I almost feel like they're going to do a women's Royal Rumble. I think they're going to do a women's Royal Rumble. Where the winner gets their brand.
Why not? Wait, hold on. Why not? Wait, actually, if there was a year, if there was a year where they would do a women's Royal Rumble, this would be it. Well, technically it'd be next year, but whatever.
The biggest Royal Rumble of all time, most likely it'll be the 30th annual. They're doing it in the Alamo Dome, so they're going to want a big spectacle. They're going to have at least 4 hours, possibly closer to 4.5. So I almost wouldn't be surprised if they announce a 40-man Rumble instead of a 30-man. Although I much prefer a 30-man. And I almost would not be surprised if they announce for the first time ever we're going to do a women's Royal Rumble.
They don't have enough women on the roster to do that.
It doesn't have to be 30.
They can bring in, they could have, Mickie James could make an appearance for that. They could have Asuka show up. They could,
Ember Moon.
Yeah. They could have an NXT, okay, we're going to pick the 4 women from NXT to come and just be in the match, and if they win, well, they get a spot on the main roster or something, but they won't win.
Yeah, but if you bring up the women from NXT there, then there are going to be that group of people that expect them to stay once they're up.
Well, and you know what? They don't have to. That's happened before, and they didn't stay, or they weren't exclusive to the main roster for a while.
Rusev was in a Royal Rumble and then didn't debut for, was it 1 year and 3 months?
Yeah,
or was it 3 months?
Exactly, another year.
Bo Dallas? You could absolutely do a women's Royal Rumble. Maybe so you throw out the 2 champions, and we'll say most of the roster is going to be on it, so you do 10. We'll say 10 plus the 2 champions make 12. And then you bring up, let's say, 5 from NXT. Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Ember Moon, Asuka, and Liv Morgan. You do a 15-woman Royal Rumble match, and in that case, even you have 5-5-5. Winner gets a women's title match at WrestleMania of their choosing. Obviously, if it were to be someone from NXT, they would probably pick, SmackDown or Raw, and they would have to be on the main roster, but they won't win anyway. Who cares? You do 15 instead of 30. You could pull that off.
They could even do 20 and have a couple legends in there, and have
exactly.
A couple of that ones that, like, maybe at that point I don't know when they're planning on doing the women's classic or whatever.
Around that time.
Yeah, so, they could do it. They could definitely have a 15-20 woman Royal Rumble, and that would take up more time.
That would be a half-hour minimum.
I'm sorry, I don't see it. Then again, like Patrick said, I didn't see Hell in a Cell for women happening this year either, so.
They could,
there you go.
If not, I could definitely see both the Raw and the SmackDown Women's titles being defended on that show, especially if it's going to be 4 hours long.
Yeah, my thought process for that was going to be that there would be a 5-match card. It would be the 2 Raw, the 2 women's titles, the 2 heavyweight titles, and then the Rumble match itself.
Not if it's 4 hours. You got to have more than 5 matches.
Depending on how long
the Rumble match would take. And the Rumble match would probably take an hour 15. It would probably take still about 1/3 of the time.
Yeah, but that's normally with a 3-hour show. They have a 5-match card.
Okay, then you have TJP, or you have whoever's the Cruiserweight champion defend as well, and there's your 6th match.
Yeah. But, I mean, Royal Rumble is still a little ways away, so...
Yeah.
I think we've pretty much hit everything. We might as well get into the close of the show here. So, what do you guys think as far as your match of the night?
Honestly, this is going to surprise a lot of people, but I'm going to go with the tag title match. I enjoyed Charlotte and Sasha for what it was, but I think the tag title match was better worked overall, and despite both matches having screwy finishes, I think that the tag team title match set up more intrigue as far as what was going to happen the next night on Raw than the finish to the women's Hell in a Cell match did. So I'm going to go with New Day versus Sheamus and Cesaro. Patrick?
I think it's like I want to say one of the Hell in a Cell matches, but it's just there's a lot of kookiness on this show where it's kind of stuff I've always said before, where it's good match, goofy ending. But I think in this case, while yes, it did have a very goofy ending, I will absolutely give them the credit that they're due for going out and being able to do what they did. I will say the main event. I will say Charlotte versus Sasha. You know, they had the most hyped match of the show. I don't think it was overhyped to go on what our guest was mentioning. I thought the big entrances, Sasha getting her Takeover Brooklyn entrance again, it was almost carbon copy.
Yeah, just no Snoop Dogg.
No, Takeover. Takeover Brooklyn, not Dallas.
Hell, I think the Takeover Brooklyn one still looked better.
I did too. But, you know, the big entrances, and they went out and they beat the hell out of each other legitimately for a half hour. You know, and they pulled it off. You know, the goofy finish does kind of hurt everything. My best guess is Charlotte was supposed to put Sasha through the table, and the table just never gave. You know, you could call it a Japanese table moment. That's what I think it was going to have. What was supposed to happen was Sasha was supposed to go through the table, and eventually Charlotte just says, screw it, and hits the natural selection. So I think the finish aside, I would absolutely still give props to the main event and Charlotte and Sasha for pulling off what they did.
Yeah, I'm going to give a slight edge to Charlotte and Sasha. I think the Universal title match was just as good. Both those matches were. You find out that they're totally deserving of the Hell in a Cell. They brought it for different reasons. I just think the brutality that they were able to show in that Hell in a Cell match, even though yes, it wound up kind of lacking towards the end, it was still a really, really good match, and I enjoyed the crap out of it. And yeah, that's where I'm gonna go with that. MVP.
Patrick.
Gary.
I went first the last time. Just answer the damn question.
Fine. I'm actually having trouble thinking of one, legitimately.
Fine, I'm going to give it to both of the women involved in the main event and the circumstances surrounding it. While I think the Cesaro and Sheamus versus the New Day match was better, there was a lot more pressure on Charlotte and Sasha's shoulders to deliver, and I think they absolutely did tonight.
I'm going to single out and just say Charlotte because of the fact that in the end, you know, Sasha had all this fight, but in the end, it essentially meant nothing. And I do think that Charlotte was able to kind of overcome a few things that happened, because let's be honest, there were a few botches. And coincidentally, I think they were all centered around tables. Because you had the one where my guess was Sasha was supposed to give the double knees to the floor through table, except the table gave way. You know, so... And then, you know, Charlotte trying to put Sasha through the table at the end, not being able to, and then just saying, screw it. Between that, her awesome entrance, because Sasha's was good too, but like I said, I had already seen it before. I was surprised by Charlotte's. The fact that they would go that far with her being the queen and you will bow down and everything. Plus, Charlotte's constant chirping through the match. You will bow down to me. You know, I am the queen. You will respect me and everything. And all the chirping that she gave. She nailed this match to the best of her ability, given the circumstances that they had. I thought she absolutely nailed it.
That's where I was going to go as well as Charlotte. So, unless you have something different there, Harry.
I already answered it. I said I give it to both. I give it to both Charlotte and Sasha.
All right. So we got to do our final rating now.
6.5. The good outweighs the bad, but the good doesn't necessarily reach the level that you think you come to associate with the great Hell in a Cell matches of the past. The women delivered. The tag title match was really good. I enjoyed Owens and Rollins for what it was, and I actually think TJP and Kendrick got screwed out of crowd reaction because the match up until the finish was really good as well. Seems to be a common thread on these pay-per-view conversations that we seem to be having, and that a lot of the good matches get ruined by really bad booking decisions at the end of the match. Where all they go with this for Survivor Series, I guess that's what we find out next. But in my opinion, the good outweighs the bad tonight, so I'm going to go with a 6.5. Patrick?
I am in agreement, and yeah, you're 100% right. In this case, Perkins and Kendrick, really goofy finish. You had Jericho in the match for almost the entire second half of the Universal title match. You had the goofiness that was the finish of the women's title match. And it seemed, and then you had the kind of almost pause button ending to the tag title match, because let's be honest, that's what all of this was. This was essentially the WWE's way of hitting pause on this rivalry or whatever it's going to be, so that now we can get through Survivor Series in 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 weeks from tonight.
Before Thanksgiving. So this will help in the build to that, and I can already see 4 of the teams for Raw that are going to be in that Survivor Series match, and that one's a gimme with Cesaro and Sheamus, New Day, the Good Brothers, or the Club, or Gals and Eggs, or whatever the hell you want to call them, and Enzo and Cass. So I think, yeah, the good does outweigh the bad, but the fact that they did too many Hell in a Cell matches, they did too long of Hell in a Cell matches, with all of them going almost 25 minutes, you know, like I said, 107.40 is way too much. You know, just like the Shawn Michaels Triple H one was way too much. That one was 45 minutes on its own. I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna say a 6.
I'm going to go a little higher than both of you. I'm going to go with a 7. I think you had 2 Hell in a Cell matches that delivered. I think Roman and Rusev wasn't... It was still good. It wasn't bad, and I think it got much better as it went on. I enjoyed the tag title match, like Harry said. The pre-show match was good. You also had look, we don't like the finish, but it didn't take away from the action that they had previous to that finish in the TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick match. So, you know, there really wasn't a stinker on this card or anything like that either. I mean, everything, you know, you had the 2 kind of nothing filler matches that were what they were. So,
well, I real quick, I don't even know that Bayley and Dana was really a filler. I think that was to set up Bayley as the next contender. So it really wasn't even a filler.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I think Dana actually did okay in that match. I don't think, you know, she wasn't bad like she's been previously. So
True.
I don't think Dana gets the credit she deserves. I'm actually a fan of Dana. I think I see potential there.
She's great as a character.
That's the thing,
She's
potential.
just, the wrestling part she still didn't have down until she did okay today. But, alright, so that's going to do it for this edition of Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max. Of course, Gary and Paul will give their thoughts on the episode that we're doing on Monday night after Raw. Of course, we'll be doing our Raw review, and then we'll be doing that show, and we'll be discussing whatever else has been going on over the weekend, news-wise, and all that stuff. You guys already have planned what you're going to do for this week on Wrestling Unwrapped?
That's assuming Harry gets it in time.
Yes. Our plan for this Sunday is contingent on the United States Postal Service.
Because I mailed him this Sunday's episode on Friday, and now we just have to pray that he gets it by, like, Tuesday.
Yeah, if I get it by Tuesday, I should be able to watch it in plenty of time to be able to do the show for Sunday. The current plan, Patrick, if you want to hit him with it, and then I'll hit him with the backup plan just in case everything craps out with the USPS.
Yeah, so assuming the DVD gets to Harry in time next Sunday, we will actually be doing a little bit of a different show in that we will be doing the debut show of the Wrestling Revolver from the Seven Flags Center in Clive, Iowa. It is actually a show that was hand-delivered to me by Sandy Callahan. It is his company, so you could almost call this the first ever sponsored by a company edition of Wrestling Unwrapped, and it features quite a few big names, including Sami Callihan himself versus Bob Holly in one of the feature matches. So that, like I said, it should be a very hard-hitting and very interesting show. So that's plan A. But as Triple H likes to say, there's always a plan B.
Because nothing says wrestling in 2016 like Bob Holly.
Wow! Start already.
The original plan for this past Sunday show, until schedules got screwed up and producers got called into work and potential Game 7s were and then didn't happen, yada yada, happy horse crap, whatever. The original plan for this past Sunday was actually an oldie but a relatively well-known show, and actually still relatively topical given the fact we just covered the man a couple of weeks ago as well. If the Wrestling Revolver Show does not get to me in time, Patrick and I will be tackling WCW's Halloween Havoc 1998.
Sweet.
Featuring one of the best matches in WCW history and one of the worst matches in pro wrestling history.
Brother.
And of course, guess which match it is that no one gets to see.
Right.
Well, because nothing says pay-per-view like Saturn versus Lodi. I will leave that as your last cue as to what to expect there. That'll be this Sunday on Wrestling Unwrapped here on the W2M Network.
All right. Well, make sure you go subscribe to that W2M Network, or subscribe to Wrestling to the Max and Wrestling Unwrapped on their own. Go visit W2Mnet.com, where, of course, you can not only get the podcast, but you can get written stuff from our various article writers. We get reviews up here on most of the weekly shows. We get stuff that's not involving wrestling either. So, there's entertainment stuff, there's games, there's football stuff. So, definitely a website to go check out.
For example, yours truly contributes to the NCAA Top 25 rankings this weekend on the W2Mnet.com's on W2Mnet.com's football section.
And yours truly participates in the preview roundtable for the pay-per-view that we just covered, Hell in a Cell.
There you go. So, all right. Well, we'll see you on Monday night for the regular W2M Part 1. These guys will see you on Sunday for Wrestling Unwrapped. Have a good night, everybody.
Waka waka.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.